just kind of want to reiterate what's going on in the state, especially in Central Florida. There is a severe drought in the state of Florida right now. Polk County Fire Rescue can attest to that. I promise you that. We had a busy weekend. As you may know, or just to remind some people, due to the severe drought conditions, Polk County Fire Rescue enacted a burn ban for the county. That was on November 25th. And on November 25th, since then, we've gotten minimal rain. If any, we've gotten a little bit here. We did get a little bit last night, which wasn't enough to make a difference, especially in Polk County, actually. Severe drought, we had that frost conditions for those sustained days, about 3 or 4 days where it was really cold. Everything is dry, everything is brown, and everything is very ripe for fire. As you might not know, but I like to go ahead and just show you some of those stats that we have as an organization. Right now, like I said, Polk County Fire Rescue the county itself is under a burn ban that was kind of instituted by myself, Polk County Fire Rescue, in collaboration with Department of Forestry, municipalities within this county, and actually even with emergency management and the state of Florida out of Tallahassee. But right now, and just since February, let's say February, Polk County Fire Rescue has responded to 170 brush fires. Out of those 170 brush fires, just for the month of February, there have been about 3,100 acres that have been burned. Out of those 170 fires since February, 10 of those have involved one or more structures. And what I mean by structures can be defined as a shed and or a residence. We've unfortunately lost a couple homes in those, and unfortunately, a friend of mine and a retired firefighter of ours that retired about 13 years ago, he lost his home in that. The cause is from a fire. Now, was it an illegal burn or how that fire started? That's still under investigation. But I do know he was a retired firefighter, and most importantly, he was a friend of mine, and it's really unfortunate for that. But that's just the dire need of. That just proves the point that how dry it is out there right now. So just since Wednesday, let's just rewind that back and bring it down to a smaller on a micro scale. Since Wednesday, Polk County Fire Rescue's responded to 72 brush fires. Out of those, we burn about 1,200 acres. I shouldn't say we burn about 1,200 acres. The fire actually burned about 1,200 acres, and we extinguished those. So then bring back a little bit more even from yesterday. Yesterday, Polk County Fire Rescue responded to 30-plus vegetation fires. 2 of those led into structure fires and or property damage. Polk County Fire Rescue is in the business of protecting life and property, and we'll do our best to do that, and we'll continue to do that. We do need a little bit of help from the people out there too, to just be smart about, just be smart. If it's brown, everything's dry. We're going to start burning stuff. You don't need to have illegal burns. I know everybody would like to really get outside, clean up their yards, and take care of that stuff. Now's not the time to do that right now. So we're just stressing the importance of this drought. State of Florida is in a severe drought right now, severe drought. And like I said, we anticipated this in about November when we enacted that burn ban, because the KBDI, the Keach-Byram Drought Index, was at that point where the county actually says, hey, we need to really start thinking about that. We enacted that. And now the drought index is in kind of extreme drought conditions. And it's going to continue to be that way for a while. And I'll pass it to Mr. Paul Womble, and he can be able to discuss a little bit about that when the forecasted rains are coming. But I just can't stress enough to you, it's dry out there. It's prime for fire conditions, and we will do our best, and we will be the best at putting these fires out and protecting life and property. We do need some help. Yesterday, 2 of the bigger fires that were relevant, we did have a large fire in the northeast section of Polk County up in that Davenport area. It was right there off of the Osceola-Polk Line Road. It was an illegal fire. We had a couple sheds and a couple outbuildings that were possibly that did burn up, and some property, and I say property, some heavy machinery. So we did have that. No injuries on that one. Then we also had an area in our southeast section of the county called the River Ranch Resort, and not the River Ranch Resort. It was going to be west of River Ranch Resort, the Westgate River Ranch Resort. It was going to be the River Ranch Hunt Club. They had a large fire out there. Right now it's about 650 acres. Last I knew, and it was about 80% contained. I would say that 650 is probably closer to 700, 720 now. The numbers I had were a little bit earlier this morning, working with our partners at Department of Forestry. They're continuing to contain that fire right now. with that fire, we do want to say our primary function in there is to protect life and property. And part of that was that wind was coming out of the north. Coming out of the south, pushing to the north. So really, Polk County Fire Rescue made a line to protect structures with a lot of our partners from Osceola, Avon Park, Highlands County, Frostproof. Even the city of Davenport ended up sending some trucks. I don't want to miss anybody, but there were a lot of resources come because they know how important it is to get out there. So what we did is we were able to protect any structures that fire did come up to. We did not lose anything like that, working with forestry as they went ahead and cut a line around that. We did shut down Highway 60 for probably about 3 hours yesterday. That was a huge inconvenience for many people. I understand that, especially on this holiday weekend. We do apologize for that, but we got to make sure we can protect other people's properties and keep our crews and everybody from forestry and sheriff's office and everybody that were there. We need to keep them safe on Highway 60. From there, I'd just like to go ahead and pass this to Commissioner Rick Wilson, which his area really encompasses a lot of the driest areas in the county, anything kind of south of 60 and in that area. And being a native Floridian, he can really kind of talk about the drought conditions and what he's seen in his lifetime. Commissioner Rick Wilson.
Thank you, Chief. Again, my name is Rick Wilson, Polk County Commissioner. You know, the Chief hit on a lot of important facts, but I want to tell everybody that I have lived in Polk County all my life, and this is probably one of the driest seasons I have seen yet. The frost that we had weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, numerous frosts, it just basically, burnt everything down. And especially, I'm in the cattle business, and I see it every day how bad things are, especially with the wind that we've had. So people have to realize just how easy it is to start a fire in these conditions. And a lot of people, I know they try to do the right thing or having a barbecue, but just not paying attention. And then when we have all these fires, just kind of like the Chief said, all these people that we got out fighting these fires, we're very fortunate in Polk County. We have a lot of good firefighters and a lot of good equipment that we can cover this county, but it takes away from what we have fighting these fires that a lot of them might have been started by accidents or whatever. Even in, mowing pastures, we're, pulling up we have a lot of Kogan grass here in Polk County. It's real high grass. People pull a truck up into it, let it run a little bit, it'll catch fire. So people just have to be aware of what's going on. And it's going to be a while before we get out of this. We don't see any rains coming. I was sitting there watching the radar last night, hoping we'd get just a little bit. But when it got here, it split and pretty much went around us, and we didn't get anything. So people have to be aware of their surroundings, what's going on. Do not start any fires. Just don't. And I'll just say this. I heard last night there were some people that were shooting some fireworks off. For what reason, I don't know. That's not a good idea. And if something happens and you get caught with that, Grady might be coming to see you. So you got to use your head and think about what you're doing right now. We'll get through this, but right now it's pretty tough. But so just pushing everybody to do the right thing. I want to turn it over to Paul Womble, the Director of our Special Operations, and he'll carry on.
Rick, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Paul Womble, Emergency Management Director. So you heard the story, right? It's dry. It's been dry since November. We had frost. We had a freeze. So everything, the fire load is high. The potential is high. I'm a native Polk County, and it's, we've had some big fires in our past here, but it's been quite some time. My message is this, along with what the Chief and Commissioner Wilson have said about starting fires. Sean mentioned the fire at River Ranch yesterday. There were folks that had a knock on their door or a reverse 911 call from the communications center that said, you need to go. There's a fire coming your way. It could burn your house down and you need to go. And they'd had just a few minutes to react. So that's no different than having a hurricane plan or any other disaster plan. If you get that call or you get that knock on the door, what are you going to do? Think about that now. Sean mentioned the fire that unfortunately destroyed a retired Polk County Fire Rescue member. I also knew him very well for a long time. And his house was not out in the middle of the woods, right? It was a somewhat urban area, and it didn't take very much to cause that fire to happen. So think about what you would do in that situation to keep your family safe. Don't delay. if you get a call or a knock on the door that said, hey, there's a fire coming and you need to go, you need to go. We saw folks yesterday leaving the fire area trying to get out, or they came because, they had family in the area. But at that point, there may be a time where you can't get in. So think about what that emergency plan would be now. Think about where you would go, how you would get out. And if you do live in these areas where your home is close to woods, close to trees, even I looked today on the way in, there's just the frost in your normal neighborhood, any neighborhood in this county, if somebody throws a cigarette out or something happens to start a fire accidentally, it could be bad. So just think about that. Be prepared. Please heed the warning of the burn ban. And if not for you, your neighbors, your family, and the folks in your neighborhood. We want everybody to be safe. We don't want homes destroyed, and we certainly don't want any injuries or any folks to get hurt. So with that, I'll bring it back up to Chief Smith, and then we'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate everything real quick. I just want to take the time to introduce Commissioner Becky Troutman also. She's standing right here to my left. Hey, real quick, I just want to stress the importance a little bit of what Paul was saying. You know what I mean? It is severe drought conditions, and Polk County Sheriff's Office and Sheriff Judd is really supportive of this. Just to go over some statistics too with Polk County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff's Office has cited 21 people in the county for an ordinance burn ban since November, since we issued that ban. Many of those individuals and/or people that were cited are also getting additional criminal charges. I don't know what those are. And the Sheriff's Office also has people there being charged. They're charged with the burning during the state of emergency, which the governor issued a declaration on February 9th. And what that means is Governor DeSantis signed an emergency declaration on February 9th because of the severe drought conditions in anticipation of the drought conditions. It's going to be historical, much like what Commissioner Wilson said, and native Floridian Mr. Womble, and I know Ms. Troutman also. This is setting up to be a historical. I mean, it is so dry out there. I've been doing this 22 years right here in this county, and I've watched it, and watching the fires years ago up there on the I-4 corridor when they shut down I-4. This is looking like this could be similar to that. I don't wish that upon anybody, but it is going to be historical. Sheriff's Office is on board to really start ramping this up and taking care of the business that he normally takes care of. We just want people to be safe, man. It's common sense. Think about your family. Think about your neighbors. And there's a saying in Polk County, too, that we're really trying to just be kind. Be kind to each other and be kind to what you're doing out there, man. There's ramifications that might not go right in your yard, but they do spread. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for any questions if I can answer them.
Chief, how are you handling enforcement per se? Are we supposed to be calling the police on our neighbors? How do you handle that?
So anytime you have something and you're nervous or you do see in a burn, you can call 911 and you can say it's a non-emergency. Hey, I see a neighbor, or you could just say, hey, I'm driving by and I do see, it appears that somebody's having a recreational burn or an illegal burn. I hate to say illegal, but it'd be a recreational burn when there is a burn ban. None of this. So you can call 911 and you can just say it's a non-emergency line, and they'll go ahead and do that, and they'll handle it different than they would a typical emergency.
Chief, when it comes to the stats you were putting out there,
Yep.
they're jaw-dropping.
Yes.
Can you just give us a sense of how much your crews are taxed right now, and what these numbers do to your ability to respond as these come up again and again?
So it's a great question, and it's kind of a threefold or a trident type question, because is it taxing to us? It's not taxing to the people and the effort and everything we're putting forward, but pulling those resources. So anytime let's say we get a brush fire, large scale brush fire, large vegetation fire, our dispatch will go ahead and dispatch the closest units. And a lot of times that will require maybe an engine, 2 engines, maybe 3 brush trucks. And not that the engines can't help, but you got to remember too, the engines do carry water. So our brush trucks sit there, they can go spray all the water, come back, and they can we call it nursing. You can nurse off those trucks. So we need those, and we need the people power there too. So it taxes us on a couple fronts like that. So like yesterday at one time, we had over 30 fires going on at the same time, and they were all And I'm going to tell you right now, the majority of them, and I'm going to say the majority, 88% of them, were probably from people just not doing it. They were just having a fire in their backyard. A lot of them were picking up the brown, the dead debris and everything, and it just gets, especially with that wind, it just takes off on that grass, and it ran. And once it gets going, it gets into other vegetation, or let's say it'll get into a structure, a shed and or a vehicle. A lot of these vehicles sit low to the ground and it goes up under there. So then we're looking at property damage, and then that creates BTUs, which creates an off gas, which then that catches the next thing on fire.
Have you been in a situation where you're responding to a number of fires and there's a new fire that crops up and you have to wait to respond to that?
No, because we actually, like yesterday, from the high call volume and what we actually had a command staff at dispatch to kind of go ahead and move resources over. So we reallocate resources, pull them over, and we have automatic and mutual aid agreements with every municipality here in Polk County, and we also work really well with Hillsborough, Osceola Lake, Hardy, Highlands County, and it's kind of a reciprocal too. If they need our help, we'll send something.
It's obviously human nature.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever we're talking about, fires, anything else out there that's dangerous, it won't happen to me.
Yeah.
How do you reiterate to people that it can happen to them and that you're not immune and that the fun you think you're having really can turn out to be dangerous?
Oh, yeah, guaranteed. And the burn ban Polk County Fire Rescue doesn't want to take any fun away from anybody. State of Florida doesn't want to take fun away from everybody. This is the time of season where everybody enjoys having their little recreational fire and sitting out by the campfire. Now, we're not trying to take that away. We're not trying to tell you what to do on your property. This is your property, man. We fully respect that. But it's at that point where you have to have that 10,000-foot view and look at your actions. There's ramifications for that. And I can tell you right now, people that we do go to, a lot of them are kind-hearted. They never meant anything about it, and there was no property damage. Nothing was burned up besides vegetation. They're like, I just turned my back for a minute, or I looked at my phone for a minute, or that wind gust came in, or it was burning fine, and then the next thing you know, an ember blew, and it blew over there, and then it just took off, and I couldn't get in front of it. So that's how quick it can happen.
What are some of the consequences that people could face if they do not heed the burn ban?
That I can't answer. I know the sheriff's office, Polk County Sheriff's Office, issues a citation, and honestly, I can't remember. I think it's a financial obligation, and I don't know that. But we can get that, or I know our PIOs can get that for you. But, in some of these, like Sheriff's Office, once they're there, and and it doesn't stink that they're there, but if they're issuing you a citation for an act, something that we've been promoting since November, and then they find other criminal charges, it just seems like they kind of brought it on yourself. If you could have just followed, just be respectful of everybody else, I think it would have been, probably wouldn't have had any charges and or the original citation.
I know while the sheriff was saying they were going to be smart about things and maybe issue a warning and things like that, but I think we're to the point where warnings are over. It's like you've been told.
Yeah.
I mean, this is serious.
Yeah, no, it's very serious, and I'm not going to speak for Sheriff Judd. He can speak on that, but I think I talked with him a little bit yesterday out there on that Highway 60, and he knows how important it is. And I know you guys know Sheriff Judd about as much as I do, and I'm sure I'm not going to speak for him, but I know it's on the radar.
And this is one of the reasons why we're here, to let people know that we're very serious about this. And if it's not going to get any wetter, it's going to keep getting drier and hotter. Not hotter, but drier. And they keep, not doing the right thing. Then I'm going to do everything I can to get the Grady to do what he can to make sure that people pay attention to this, because this is life-threatening. And once these things go up, it can be some pretty hard consequences.
She did talk about it being taxing. Are crews working overtime, working more hours?
No. We're doing typical shift exchange. Sometimes if a crew is out early in the morning, like we had a fire up there in the Green Pond area where it was kind of about 4 or 5:30 in the morning, and it didn't break until they could do shift exchange about 9 o'clock. So there's a little bit of holdover there just because of the crews rotating and making sure we're working with our being collaborative with Department of Forestry, not leaving them up there by themselves, and then them not leaving our crews up there by themselves. But no, that we haven't, and this is something we'll talk about amongst the command staff and county administration. There's been times in the past, and I could probably have a real good percentage that this probably will be looked at is as it continues to get dry and the brush fires continue to keep going on the rise, we will kind of up staff on a volunteer basis if people want to come. So we'll have one member on the brush truck all the time, and that also goes back to, you know, our resources. Are we not able to respond to calls? So that brush truck will always be staffed with somebody, and that still leaves our rescues and our engines and our ambulances, everything's ready, fully staffed. So we might bring on a few extra people per shift. No, it's all over. I mean, the driest area right now in the county for Polk County is everything just 60 south is really dry. And that goes into Hardy County and everything. And then everything's really, so if you're looking drought index, it would be south of 60, but it's everywhere. Just yesterday afternoon, probably about 2-3 o'clock, we had a fire up there in the Lakeland area, which is urban, a mix of industrial urban with some duplexes. It was an outside fire that came in and then started a structure fire up there. And that was right off of, that was kind of not Lakeland proper per se, but right on the outskirts of unincorporated City of Lakeland City of Lakeland zip code. Well, yeah, I mean, damaged, yeah. There's been a lot of farmland that goes, you know, a lot of cattle. There's a lot of cattle and phosphate and a lot of mining property out the south of that 60 area, but a lot of cattle, a lot of citrus and stuff. Citrus has already taken a big hit with this frost too, and then to have these fires to make sure that we can try to get in front of them. Yes, the vegetation has burnt. We've lost a couple, maybe equipment, but no property per se, like actually gas powered or anything like that. But some of the equipment, some of the spikes, some of the some of the draggers. I'm trying to think of
Discs.
Yeah, discs. That's what I was thinking of, draggers. But yeah, I was thinking of the discs and all that kind of stuff. It's taken some damage.
How has this impacted air quality? I know some people in line have been saying that if they have respiratory issues, they're worried about if they can go for walks in their neighborhoods where the brush fires are at.
Correct. In that, I don't have the actual numbers on that, but obviously if you're respiratory immune, there's going to be issues. Yesterday, I could tell you firsthand down there at River Ranch, I'm not respiratory immune, but I think I was after that a little bit. But it's just thick. It's just it depends on which way the wind's coming and how high, you know, if the humidity's high, you know, that smoke is going to bank down a little bit. I don't have the actual air quality index, but I mean, there is going to be issues like that, you know, especially now is the time that you get a lot of, like, to piggyback off what you said, how do they report it? A lot of people call in because it's that time of year where you like to have your sliders open and your windows open and then your neighbor's burning and you're like, hey man, I'm trying to air out my house and I'm bringing in all this smoke. So there is issues. I don't have the air quality per se. I know we had a scrapyard fire just north of Lakeland, much like she was asking, you know, is it just wooded area, rural area? No, that scrapyard fire we had Saturday was actually from not a wildfire, but a grass fire that got into some of that stuff. And there's a lot of stuff going on about the toxicity of some of that smoke that was coming from that. And obviously if it's those kind of industrial equipment and or scraps, there's going to be some toxicity. And that's why we wear a proper PPE and all that kind of stuff.
And I think frustrating that there's been so many warnings issued since November, but this problem seems to keep popping up over and over again.
Yeah, you know, and like I said, it's a great question. It's not isolated to Polk County. I mean, I can promise you that. You can look at the drought index. You can look at my peers. Hillsborough County, I know, had their hands full this weekend. Hardy County had their hands full last couple of days. Highlands County, even over there to the Treasure Coast area, they're really battling it too. And then if you even want to take it farther south, you know, the colleagues down there in Collier and Lee County, Okeechobee, man, this isn't isolated to Polk. I promise you that.
I think I wanted to address, a lot of times we hear comments about, well, why is, in some of the agricultural areas, we hear questions from constituents that say, you know, I see Joe over there burning. Why is he allowed to do that? And I think it's important to understand that in the state of Florida, we do have people that are certified to burn, but that requires a permit from the Division of Forestry. It is my understanding at this time, and especially considering the winds yesterday, that those permits are being issued less and less. So if you take that into account, you think you have somebody who is a certified burner, they actually have to go through training to be able to do this and to pull a permit. They may issue those one day and you drive by and you wonder why they allowed to burn. And I don't think this is a time that we need to look at our neighbors and say, well, you know, Joe was burning, so I'm going to go home and light a fire as well. But there are differences. That doesn't then open the gate for you to go home and decide to burn your vegetation. So we get asked that a lot. Why are some of the farmers or ranchers able to burn? And they definitely have a set of standards that they are held to, and the Division of Forestry is often on call and will have lines cut to prevent those fires from spreading naturally.
No firefighters, chief, have been treated at all, thankfully, at this point.
No, that's correct. We've had no injuries besides just basic rehab,
Are you able to, I'm not sure if PIOs can just help us get some pictures of all these fires, not all, dozens, but a few of more of the fires that we talked about. It'd be actually very helpful, those pictures.
Okay.
You guys
Yeah.
fighting fire.
Yeah, we love Brandon, Polk County Fire Rescue, so we're all for that. But hey, just real quick, I do have an answer for that question about the citation. So really it says any citation issued by Sheriff's Office with violation of the burn ban is up to $500 and or 60 days in jail. So.
Chief, you mentioned something earlier about evacuation.
Mm-hmm.
How many people have been evacuated during this fire?
Well, they're back now. That was yesterday during the heat of that during the River Ranch fire down there on 60. It would have been east of 630 and 60, the intersection there. There were about, and please don't quote me, I can get those numbers for you, but probably about 20 homes where we reversed 911 and or went to the door and asked them to knock. Out of those, Mr. Womble, I think maybe just 2 didn't leave. Is that?
Yeah, there were some that didn't leave, but that was about a 2-mile stretch of those homes. So if that would have been in a much more urban area or, an area where there's a lot more neighbors, it could have been hundreds. So again, and we're, there's no rain in the forecast. We got a tease last night, but not anywhere near a beneficial amount of rain. So that's why we're here today. This could be weeks and weeks and weeks until we start seeing our normal rainy season, typically in late May or into June, right? So that's a long time. That we want folks to be ready in case it happens. It will happen. We will do this again before we start getting rain, and we want everybody to be ready.
Why is it you think that the River Ranch area, it's like year in and year out? I mean, it's every year. River Ranch catches on fire. Is that human errors? Or
Well, I know a lot of people out there. It's a lot of hunting. That River Ranch area, it's a River Ranch Hunt Club. A lot of structures been built out there over the years that are sheds, lean-tos, and they don't use it every day, or they don't live there every day. So a lot of stuff gets grown up. They go out once a month maybe and knock it down. That could be maybe one of the causes. And then they got all this stuff they knocked down they might want to burn. I do know back in when was the last big fire out there? It's been years, but 2017, and even before then, a lot of the people in there, they kind of got together and really started trying to clean up some of the vegetation that we had down there. But since then, we've had hurricanes that blew in and knocked stuff on the ground. It's been there. We didn't have a hurricane last year, and this year. I can remember in the last 5 or 6 years, I probably can count on one hand as many frosts that we had in the last 5 or 6 years or longer. I remember a couple of years, on our place, we never had a frost. Never. This year, it has been frequent and hard. The only good thing that's come out of this, it has killed a lot of mosquitoes. That's the only good thing that come out of it. But the rest of it, it has killed everything else also. So. But yeah, they try to do good out there, but it's out there. A lot of these places they don't see them very often, and they just, things get piled up and catch fire and burn.
Yeah, and just to piggyback a little bit off of what Commissioner Wilson said, that River Ranch area, if you're familiar with that area, there's salt of the earth people out there, good people, good-hearted people. But a lot of that is a recreational area where they drive ATVs, side-by-sides, all that. And those, obviously motors get hot. Obviously mufflers get hot. Obviously the grass is high and the grass is dry. That does happen. It happens, it's not that they're not listening to the burn ban. It's just one of those things where they might park it there to take a break and the muffler's hot, or they overheated the recreational vehicle and it's caught a fire, which is catastrophic because that side-by-side or ATV on fire causes a huge fire. And But yeah. Any more questions? All right, man. Appreciate everybody. You guys all be safe this week.